like pushing a pause button. A long obedience in the same direction is the theme. Transformation, a long obedience in the same direction. And I say it's like pushing a pause button because we're going to stop talking about transformation for a while after this sermon. So it's going to be like, okay, this is it for a while on this theme, because Advent begins. We've been talking a great deal about transformation, and we've focused really on personal, deep-level change. The kind that the Bible really describes when it talks with theological words about holiness, sanctification, ongoing Christ-likeness. The word transformation is a modern word that we can get a hold of that does the same qualitative change in us that these other theological words talk about. I like it because it's more of a neutral word. Transformation is used everywhere. And so we have tonight a concluding thought on this first round of talking about transformation. For Advent starts after our concert this next Sunday. The theme for tonight was not randomly selected, like I didn't have any choice in the matter. It is really the title of a book which I have loaned out to somebody and could not find in my library. I found all kinds of other books by Eugene Peterson, but do you think I could find this book, The Long Obedience in the Same Direction? I've loaned it out. Maybe one of you dear ones have it at home. I couldn't find it. And the subtitle is Discipleship in an Instant Society. Discipleship in an Instant Society is the subtitle to The Long Obedience in the Same Direction. Now, on the weekend of our retreat, I received word from my cousin that told me Eugene Peterson passed away on the weekend of our retreat at 85 years of age. It's like a personal loss almost, because I have read many of his books, and he wrote about 35 books. He was a pastor, a teacher, a writer, and he translated the entire Bible. Translated, not just paraphrased, but translated by studying himself the Greek and the Hebrew, the Message. And interestingly enough, this touched the life of somebody a lot of people know who didn't know Eugene Peterson. Bono, the singer of U2. Bono, the singer of U2, knew Eugene Peterson, and there's a very interesting interview between Bono and Eugene Peterson on YouTube. I've sent the link to Kinnan, and then he'll put it in the YouTube thing so that, yes?
I watched that video this week, and I wanted to recommend it to you.
Okay, so we've both been on the same YouTube video. It's a fascinating discussion. The both of them meet together in Montana at the home where Eugene Peterson lived. And they talked about how meaningful the message was for Bono, reading the poetry of the Psalms, and they talked about all kinds of themes. Interesting, I thought, very, very interesting. This author, a living witness to the power of Jesus at work in life, died with joy. The other articles about his death said he died with joy. Now that's something to be said. He crossed the finish line. He ended his journey with a sense of anticipation. He expressed interest in what was going to come next. Before the last step of his journey, he wrote, "Every day I put my hope on the line. I don't know one thing about the future. I don't know what the next hour will hold. Hoping it is imagination put in the harness of faith. It is a willingness to let God do it His way and in His time." That's how he defined hoping. hope. Letting God do it in His way and in His time, and letting imagination be put into the harness of faith. When I read Peterson's book many years ago, by the way, I read The Long Obedience in the Same Direction. This title has never left my memory bank. And I can't say that about all the other books I've read. It's not enough, you see, for any of us to begin the journey. We need to end it. And we need to arrive at our destination in good style. We are not tourists on this journey of faith, just taking in the sights. Well, let's see what Christianity is all about and just look at it a bit, like a tourist would going to some new place. We are pilgrims, you see, taking our steps one step at a time to reach an endpoint. We begin with this deep awareness that we're going somewhere. A quote from Peterson, who said, "The central reality for Christians is the personal, unalterable, persevering commitment God makes to us." Perseverance is not the result of our determination. It is the result of God's faithfulness. We keep on the journey because God's committed to us. It doesn't depend so much on how good we are at our sense of commitment. We are sometimes lousy with our commitment. Or it's very up and down like a yo-yo, or the waves of the sea. But you know what? God's commitment to us is a constant. It does not go away. God's love for us is simply there, like a rock, like a fortress, like a shelter. God sticks with us. We have a dependable personal relationship. We have a traveling companion, but we must stick to the trail and not wander off. With this in mind, let's read our text for tonight. As you might imagine, it's taken from the Message. That's why I made a copy for everyone. You all have copies of Hebrews 12, 1 to 13 from the Message. And the title over this text, which didn't come out as I copied it, Discipline in a Long-Distance Race. So let's read this together. Do you see what this means? All these pioneers, and the pioneers are those from chapter 11 that we read partially in our responsive reading, about all the people who are on the faith list. Do you see what this means? All these pioneers who blazed the way, all these veterans cheering us on? It means we better get on with it. Strip down, start running, and never quit. No extra spiritual fat, no parasitic sins. Keep your eyes on Jesus, who both began and finished this race we're in. Study how he did it. Because he never lost sight of where he was headed. That exhilarating finish in and with God. He could put up with anything along the way. Cross, shame, whatever. And now he's there, in the place of honor, right alongside God. When you find yourselves flagging in your faith, go over that story again. Item by item, that long litany of hostility he plowed through, that will shoot adrenaline into your souls. In this all-out match against sin, others have suffered far worse than you, to say nothing of what Jesus went through, all that bloodshed. So don't feel sorry for yourselves. Or have you forgotten how good parents treat children and that God regards you as his children? My dear child, don't shrug off God's discipline, but don't be crushed by it either. It's the child he loves that he disciplines. The child he embraces, he also corrects. God is educating you. That's why you should never drop out. He's treating you as dear children. This trouble you're in isn't punishment, it's training. The normal experience of children. Only irresponsible parents leave children to fend for themselves. Would you prefer an irresponsible God? We respect our parents for training and not spoiling us, so why not embrace God's training so we can truly live? While we were children, our parents did what seemed best to them, but God is doing what is best for us, training us to live God's holy best. At the time, discipline isn't much fun. It always feels like it's going against the grain. Later, of course, it pays off handsomely, for it's the well-trained who find themselves mature in their relationship with God. So don't sit around on your hands. No more dragging your feet. Clear the path for long-distance runners so no one will trip and fall. So no one will step in a hole and sprain his ankle. Help each other out and run for it. The question at the beginning refers to the chapter before, which I just mentioned. Chapter 11 is full of stories about persons of faith who kept on the journey. You know what might be good for us sometimes? To think about all the persons of faith you know or have known who kept the faith and crossed the finish line. You might want to reflect on their lives, just like the Hebrew writer reflected on all those good lives that had already kept the course and finished the race. They are listed to encourage us to run, or better said, for those of us who aren't going to run so much, to keep on walking, keep on moving, keep on going in the right same direction. The examples are given so that we are encouraged, as verse 1 says, to get on with it. Let's get on with it. Let's start getting on the course. Let's get on the journey. Let's do it. Sometimes we talk an awful lot about faith, but sometimes we just need to get on with it and just not quit. It's hard, I think, for us always to have to encourage those who should be further along to keep on the journey. I mean, if you're taking a trip and you have some traveling companions, it's not a lot of fun if you always have to say, oh, come on, let's keep going. Oh, come on, it's not going to take too much longer. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. If somebody always wants to get out. Or if you have kids in the car, of course, that's another challenge. They always want to stop. And to keep people going on the right course is exhausting. But here in the body of Christ, we ought to encourage one another on, you see. Cheering each other on to never quit, to get on with it. And then several things are highlighted in this text. And of course, you can take this text with you and maybe read it this week. Keep it in your Bible, fold it for a while, and think about it. How is it possible for us to keep on this journey? To let our lives be changed into persons of faith that looks at life from the God perspective? Well, verse 2 says, it helps us keep your eyes on Jesus. Keep your eyes on Jesus. Why? Because he started the race and he finished the race. He didn't get off track in his whole life. Jesus not only saves us, he shows us how we are to take the journey of faith. He shows us what it means to live and to so run that crossing the finish line is the end result. As disciples of his, we need to study how he did it, our text says. If you're getting sort of tired, like you're taking a break along the side of the road and you're not sure you can get up and journey again, then you need to study the good life of our Lord. Review it. Think through it again. Gain strength from looking at the life of Jesus. His relationship with God meant that the cross with all of its suffering, did not keep him from seeing and crossing the finish line. In our journey with Jesus, we can look at how he went through trouble, and he had trouble. The life of Jesus is not a picnic, as you well know. He was really in the process of suffering on many different levels. If we look at how he went through it, that can give us energy to go on. Furthermore, our text says most of us haven't suffered nearly as much as other folk. And if you look at our world today, there are many Christians suffering for the faith. We have it pretty good here, although I often think we maybe have a subtle kind of psychological thing we have to constantly fight against in our culture. To keep true to the faith in a culture that says, yeah, faith, belief, God, what is this? Are you back in the Middle Ages still? Have you never grown up? Do you still need a crutch? All these kinds of good things. That may be a subtle kind of persecution. But the second thing our text says is, so don't feel sorry for yourselves. Keep your eyes on Jesus and don't feel sorry for yourselves. Well, how can that help us on our journey? Well, I think sometimes as Christians we often bemoan our position of faith. Poor me, I can't cheat to get ahead. Look at all those other guys who cheat, and they make a lot more money than I do. I read an article in Time magazine, which I wouldn't recommend. It's not one worth reading. So the recommendation of this video by YouTube by Eugene Peterson and Bono is recommended, this other one not. It's a woman, a young thing in pink, which is the hot color right now. She wants to become rich. She wants to help women get rich, and so she's trying to sell actually medicines to women that they really actually don't need. She just wants, that's her goal, to make lots of buckos and to help other women make lots of bucks. Now, isn't that a goal? No. But when we look at someone like that, we say, well, if I wasn't a Christian, I could go for the buckaroos too. Maybe I haven't made enough money because I've been following Jesus and being a fair person on the planet. As a little parenthesis, did any of you see even part of the Bambi Awards that were given out on, was that Saturday night or Friday night? Anybody see any of it? Okay. I watched a little bit of it. Didn't watch it all, but you know what was interesting to me? I say this not to say that the Bambi Award thing is meaningful, but they had two people there. One was a photographer and one was a scientist. Both of them had looked at the world in its current state with all of the melting of the ice caps and the animals that are not being able to manage, all these kinds of things, plastic in the ocean, all these things we know. And you know what they did? They received awards for, the Earth Awards, saving the Earth. They actually preached. And you know what they preached? We need to change now. We must change now. We have to change now. I thought, well, these are like ministers saying to people, you've got to be born again. You've got to get changed. And they were very dramatic. It was very, I felt really like it was an impacting thing because they were saying, quite frankly, we have to get on with it. We must do what we must do. And sometimes we as Christians can get a little sloppy in our feelings, like, poor me. I have to tell the truth all the time when maybe a good lie would help me out. Poor me, I could have more money if I had dealt out my cards differently and looked out for number one first. Those kinds of thoughts. I've heard Christians say all kinds of stupid stuff, actually, in comparison with the life of faith. A poor meism. The author in Hebrews said, stop it. Just stop feeling sorry for yourselves. Get over it. If you've got this attitude, get out of it. And he says, discipleship includes this sense of discipline. We are learning what it means to be disciples. We're being educated. We're getting to understand the rhythms of what it means to live rightly. We're getting training that we have to put into practice. And the spiritual disciplines are not fun. Kids don't like discipline. Nobody likes discipline. But you know what? We sometimes need it. And if we want to grow up, and the end result of all of this discipline says the well-trained find themselves mature in their relationship with God. That's what the end result is. Maturity in what? Our relationship with God. We grow up into the faith in our relationship with God and don't remain in a childlike kindergarten faith. Now, I love kindergarten faith. I love it when little kids say marvelous little things about God and faith. I mean, it's childlike, it's beautiful. But I don't like to see that in people that get up over 30, over 40, over 50, over 60 and still want to play kindergarten faith. We need maturing faith, just like we need mature relationships. If all of our relationships stay on square one, immature, it doesn't bring us anywhere. But the word says if we keep in this training, it's this well-trained who find themselves mature in their relationship with God. We learned from Stefan over the weekend retreat that relational knowledge is the highest form of knowing. And here we have it again in our text. This knowing and having a mature relationship with God. If transformation has the goal of deepening our relationship with God, allowing us to come closer to Him and enabling us to sit down at the table and really talk with Him, then all of the in-between steps, discipline, practices needed, is simply worth it. It's simply worth it. We get in a chance to more and more understand how God is, and then our conversations with Him are rich and deep and satisfying. I think sometimes people are dissatisfied in their Christian faith because they have let themselves stay on a low concept of relationship with God and haven't gone on to this maturing kind of thing. That's just the thing that I think. You can check it out yourself. But ask any marathon runner, ones who run the marathons, what's the coolest moment for them? Crossing the finish line. Verse 12 says, so don't sit on your hands. Obviously, if you're a runner, you can't do that. You're sitting on your hands, you're not running the race. A runner is glad to cross the finish line. And the conclusion in verse 13, 12 and 13 is don't sit around, don't drag your feet, clear the path, and help your fellow runner. I think that's interesting. It wasn't just help me to run, it's help everybody to run. Fill the holes. If you're coming along and you see a hole, fill it up and then go on. Why? You don't want your fellow runner in the faith run to trip. So when we're on our journey and we can discover things that can smooth the path for our brothers and sisters, you know what? Let's smooth it out. Let's make the path clear and help each other out. And the concluding word is, and let's run for it. So in this transformation, this whole thing about us being transformed, I would like to finish it off by saying, let's just run for it. Whatever it might mean for each one of us. Whatever still needs to be worked on in us, which is ongoing, we know. But let's help each other out